to wear this. But we were having a look at the idea of literary impressionism. If you could write that up, please.
I got it.
Now, this is really good for us because this gives us something that we can walk into an exam or an assessment talking about literary movements. Are you okay? You seem confused.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So literary impressionism. They also mentioned, and I think it's important for you to know, they talked about how it differentiated itself from what type of writing? Yeah, Victorian 19th century novella. It was a different format. It lacked the certainty. Take notes, guys. So it was different from the 19th century certainty of the Victorians. They also mentioned that it was a proto-modernist text. These are terms that signal you understand how a writer is subverting or challenging the dominant literary forms of their time. It looks at the idea of these being conscious artistic decisions. Proto-modernist.
That's the one.
Yes. So it's pre-modernist. It's showing signs, rather than saying pre-modernist, which means not modernist, it's saying that proto-modernist is like the beginnings of. Okay. Now, that's all very well. We've identified that it's got these characteristics of these literary genres, these literary movements, but what are they? What were some of the things that we could identify as examples of style and form? Yes. One. Give you one thing. Yeah, there's a structural decision.
Is that in frame? And belly, sure.
Okay. The
Something like that. Go.
maybe use the darker pens. The purples are better. Sorry, I was going to say what you say. I'll say it again for you. Yes. The insistence upon the description before the identification. He forces you through that experience, that suspending of the temporal moment where his character Milo is experiencing it before he decodes it and understands it.
So that's what delayed decoding?
Yeah, delayed delivery of the experience's meaning. What were some other things that he did? Sarah?
Atmospheric interference,
Excellent. Atmospheric interference to alter our perception. How?
like he explained, like things are happening and he didn't realize. Oh, there was a haze.
Yeah, there's a lot of haze, both the haze of the experience. You'll notice the long sentences with the lots of bits. Sometimes it's literally, there was a phrase used at the very beginning that was going to signal to us that this was not going to be a linear, clear narration. What was the thing that she pointed out to us where it told us that stylistically that was not going to be the case with Milo's narration? How does Conrad describe, or Conrad's narrator describe the narration of Milo? What did he describe it of? Is it that you crack open a nut and there is the thing? How did he say?
Something like that.
Nope. He said that unlike other sailors, where their story was like the cracking open of a nut, where you would get the kernel inside, his is more looking at the outside, the haze around, the impression of it. Now, there's some other things that he does as well in terms of time, his temporal interference. What does he do? He messes with time. How does he mess with time?
He speeds it up and slows it down.
He speeds it up and he slows it down. You're experiencing it as Marlowe experiences, both the panic and the confusion and the doubt. She used the comparison of the, classes, perhaps literature, I'm sorry, sometimes might seem to take 3 or 4 days, whereas your lunchtime might go like that. Your experiences change based upon your engagement with the moment. And this text is doing that as well. What? Sorry. Sometimes it's the amount of detail within a space. Notice those long sentences with their fragments. Sometimes it's the language that he uses in it, which is deliberately opaque, deliberately unclear. We can remember that her example was his experience of confusion when he is aware suddenly that there are people in the jungle around him. He sees, the faces, then he sees the bodies, then he sees the twigs, and it's like in his mind in that panic moment, when you're in shock and everything slows. Panic moment, he's looking through it, the little tiny bits and pieces, and then he's being attacked. He suddenly realises it. Then there's a sentence that just says he's being attacked. But before that, he made us go through that process of that shock, of that understanding of it. He also jumps without warning. Have you noticed that? Because he says that our experience of our life isn't actually linear. Our experience does jump. Our experience does move. We don't have these distinct endings and beginnings. I particularly noticed at the end of the novel that it goes directly from him coming out of the Congo to suddenly he's with the intended talking to her. There's lots of movements from one moment to another that just happen in terms of Marlowe's attention to it, what we are supposed to look at, without much segue in between. So, looking at it here, how much influence do you think Marlowe's narration has on the reader's experience? What do you think?
A lot.
A lot.
Well, we only
And
experience
Well, I don't know. It's this type of text because it has some. It's kind of dangerous in that the reader can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
There's nothing forced on them.
Yeah, he does allow some interpretive ambiguity, very much so. Definitely some interpretive ambiguity occurring there. And he is an unreliable narrator. We've got a narrator within a narrator for a start. But also because it's his subjective experience, it is only his experience. It is limited. It is impressionistic. It is not definitive. Though it is often presented, perhaps not in a more contemporary classroom, as a definitive European, African experience, that is not its framing within this novel. Its framing within this novel is a subjective experience, a subjective impression, as relayed through two people. But as Finn was saying, it is ambiguous, which also means that the author is allowing a lot of rope to the reader, and the reader must understand that that is occurring. And that is some of the problems that some people have with this novel. The fact that we do look to novels to be specific, don't we? We do look to them to give us answers and clarity, and this text is denying us that, and yet we approach it with the same reading strategies as we do texts that are more explicit. However, I find it very interesting to understand the style of this text. I think it makes a lot more sense to me now that I understand that. Well, I did already, but let's hope it did for you. Let's just pretend. Hands up now if you're getting a little bit more of an idea about some of the decisions that might have annoyed you before. Hands up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, hands down. Hands up, no, he still annoys you. Okay, there we go. Oh, he's winning some over. That's dangerous. Alright, we'll be putting this online for all the good it will do you. And we're going to continue this next lesson. Alright.